It's a Mailbag Monday. We've got your questions about David Sandlin being traded from the Royals to the Red Sox and why Yophrey Rodriguez is going to be Milwaukee's #1 prospect in 2025. Let's talk about it.
You are Locked On MLB Prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on in to Locked On MLB Prospects, your home for all things minor league baseball. I'm your host, Lindsay Crosby, award-winning baseball writer and podcaster, and thank you for making this your first listen every single day. We're proudly part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Today's episode is made possible by our friends at FanDuel. Make every moment more. New customers join today, and you'll get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. So as we do every single Monday, this is a mailbag episode. All of these questions came from listeners of the show. If you have a question for us, I'm on Twitter at Crosby Baseball. Show's on Twitter at Locked On Farm. We have an email. We have a Discord. It's all in the episode description. It's all in the show notes. And we've also started to promote this really fun trend of listeners sending me cards, trading cards, for players that I've talked about and or I like. Shout out to Phil for this 10 graded Hurston Waldrop Bowman draft. It's a fuchsia lunar refractor, numbered 43 of 199. So that's super cool. Again, thank you, Phil, for that. Thank you also for having me on your podcast. That was fun to talk about Ryan Kirkering. And there's reminder, if you're into the hobby, there is a hobby channel in our Discord. Folks talking about whether it's Bowman draft, other releases, breaks, all of that kind of stuff. Okay, so we're asked about the David Sandlin trade from the Royals to the Red Sox. And this deal came out over the weekend and was a relatively, I'm not going to say minor trade, but it was a 1-for-1 trade. Prospect David Sandlin going for relief pitcher John Schreiber. So from this show, obviously we care about the prospect angle, right? So Sandlin was an 11th rounder in 2022 out of Oklahoma. Our MLB draft fans will understand a guy drafted in the 11th round means that you probably legitimately had some signability questions and did not want to lose a draft pick if you did not get him to sign, but they got him to come in. He made 14 starts last year, most of those in single A. He got promoted to high A and got, I think it was either 2 or 3 starts before he had a minor injury and did not finish the year. But for Sandlin, the stuff is really good. The performance is fine. He's 22. He was in single A. He's supposed to dominate, right? 4-2 with a 3.51 ERA in 66 2/3 innings. 87 strikeouts, 11.7 per 9, to 18 walks, 2.4 per 9, and 9 home runs allowed for David Sandlin. The stuff, again, is the calling card here, and you could see how he could absolutely explode going into 24. The fastball sits mid-90s. It doesn't have a lot of horizontal movement, but it's got really good carry up in the zone. I've seen some offseason videos, I think it was Driveline, that shows him hitting 100 miles an hour. The velocity helps. The extra ticks on the fastball help because, again, there's not a lot of horizontal movement. It's like that Hunter Green dead straight fastball. And so any extra velocity you can give it helps it survive when you miss, because when David Sandlin misses, he tended to miss middle, right? But to go along with that fastball with, again, even better velocity, again, touching 100 now, we saw from Driveline. He has a slider, sits in the mid to upper 80s. Not a full sweeper, but sweeper-ish. Good horizontal movement to it. He felt really comfortable throwing it to both lefties and righties. And we've talked about sweepers and extreme horizontally breaking pitches have significant platoon splits because there's different ways you use them all. If you're a righty, you're throwing it to a righty, it's going to run away from the guy. So it's a good chase pitch, get him to swing and miss on something that's out of the zone. But when you face a lefty, you have to have really good command of it to be able to either backdoor it, which feels like it isn't as consistent or reliable as you want it to be, or bring it in and throw it like towards the back foot of the guy and be able to either entice him to swing or get a strike as it crosses the strike zone on the way into the glove. And he does that. He does both of those. So he doesn't have as severe platoon splits as you would expect a guy whose primary breaking pitch is a mostly horizontal sweeper. He does have a changeup that's splitterish. It's the main tertiary pitch he uses. He does have a big slow curveball. He doesn't really throw it. It's really fastball, slider, changeup. I don't know if that's actually a splitter or if it just looks like a splitter on film, but it is a little bit faster. It feels like it's a splitter. So fastball, slider, splitter. And the thing is, he throws tons of strikes, 67% strikes last year. It got like a plus 30% called strikes plus whiffs, a CSW last year. So he's got good command of 3 pitches. He's added velo this offseason, and he doesn't have severe platoon splits. It feels like it's a really good package. And so, yes, Kansas City doesn't have a great farm system, but he also was probably one of the highest ceilinged prospects that they had, given the ceiling. And I've seen some really weird analysis of this deal over the weekend. People talking about how Kansas City should never have made this deal. It didn't make sense from their perspective. And I think there's a couple things here that people are forgetting when you look at the David Sandlin trade with the Red Sox. And it's, yes, he is a useful a useful piece and a future member of your rotation, but he's going to need some time, right? And this is a team that is trying to win now. And they're not just trying to win because they extended Bobby Witt. That is legitimately a concern. He does have player opt-outs in that deal. And so at a certain point in the future, he's going to need to have seen that you are contending, or else he can leave. But the other aspect of this, I think people are leaving out, is the scenario that Kansas City is in the American League Central. This is a division that is winnable. Look at last year, you had one team finish with a record over 500. Minnesota was 87-75, had the only positive run differential in the entire division, went to the postseason. And outside of them, Detroit surprisingly was in second place at 78-84. Cleveland had a down year. The Chicago White Sox are a dumpster fire. And so this is a winnable division. And I'm not saying Kansas City is going to go from 106 losses to winning the division in 2024, but they can contend. And the moves that they've made this offseason, they've went out, they've signed probably more players than almost anybody else. Garrett Hampson on a major league deal. Reliever Will Smith, which guaranteed World Series. He's been in the last 3 of them. His team won it the last 3 years. They get Hunter Renfroe on a multi-year deal. They get Michael Wacha on a multi-year deal. They signed Chris Stratton. They signed Seth Lugo. They just recently brought in Adam Frazier on a 1-year deal. Obviously, you extend Bobby Witt Jr. They are intending to contend, and they have done a lot of work to shore up the weaknesses on this roster, which was pitching, right? We looked at, they brought up all of these young position players. Bobby Witt is 23. MJ Melendez is 25. Vinny Pasquantino is 26. Michael Massey is 25. Kyle Isbell is 27. Maikel Garcia is 24. They've brought up all of these. Nelson Velasquez is 25. They've just brought up tons and tons of young players, but they're almost all position players. And so, yes, you went out and acquired Cole Reagans last year, but now your rotation, instead of having Reagans and Singer as your 1 and 2, with I guess Jordan Lyles as your 3, now your rotation can be Cole Reagans, Michael Wacha, Seth Lugo, Brady Singer, Jordan Lyles. It's a much better rotation than you had. And so there is a path here for Kansas City to contend in 24. And the other reason that they're trying to contend, not just because the division's winnable, or at least contendable, if that's a word, but they have a stadium deal that they're trying to get approved. And so showing that they can contend, that they are putting money into the on-field product to give Kansas City fans a winner is probably going to legitimately matter when it comes to trying to get this ballpark. I mean, it shouldn't work like that, but it's probably going to work like that. There are votes to be had, and people are swayed by things like this. And so seeing that they are contending, like, I don't love the trade, but mostly that's because I don't know if John Schreiber actually changes things that much for you. But what I do love is that you are making an effort to get better in a time in baseball where so many teams are willing to let players walk and trade players away instead of investing reasonable dollars in your team. The Red Sox are a perfect example of a team that should not be treated like a poverty organization, but that is what they are. They have traded away players, major leaguers. They are getting prospects in return, or just dumping salaries like the Chris Sale deal with Atlanta. And so it is refreshing to see a team legitimately trying to contend, and it is very difficult for me to ever say you made a bad trade or you lost a trade when you are trying to contend and get better. So props to Kansas City for giving up what could potentially be an intriguing starter one day to get better now and try to make the postseason. I respect the hell out of it. In just a minute, let's talk about Yophrey Rodriguez of the Brewers, why he might be the number one prospect in 2025. We'll do that next, right here on Locked On MLB Prospects. But first, today's episode is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. They are in the throes of the NBA right now, so get buckets with your first bet on FanDuel, America's number one sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. It's $150 if your bet wins. So bet on all your favorite NBA players and teams. They have quick bets, live same-game parlays, exclusive props, and more. Go pick the best team in the league playing the worst team in the league. I could not tell you who they are. I don't know shooty hoops at all, but go do it, bet on it, get your bonus bets, and then go over to the MLB tab and play some bonus bets on baseball action. FanDuel.com/lockedon is where you shoot your shot with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NBA and the official sportsbook of the Locked On Podcast Network. Welcome back to Locked On MLB Prospects here, talking about, answering your questions, right? This is the Monday Mailbag episode. Reminder, if you have questions for us, I'm on Twitter at Crosby Baseball, shows on Twitter at Locked On Farm. We've got a Discord, we've got email, all of that stuff in the episode description, in the show notes. There's a link tree down there with all of that. Yophrey Rodriguez of the Milwaukee Brewers. Our Discord has been hopping asking about this guy because he was named either by Baseball America or MLB Pipeline, he can't remember. He was named as likely the number one prospect for the Milwaukee Brewers in 2025. And we have some pretty savvy prospect folks who are Brewers fans in our Discord, and some of them had never heard of him. So he was their biggest dollar international free agent signing last year, $1.5 million. Got 52 games in the DSL, mostly in center, 36 of his 52 in center, but played some left, played some right, DH some. 253, 393, 449. 6 homers, 21 extra base hits, 41 walks, 240 strikeouts, and 12 and 19 on stolen bases. And this is one of those weird things where we don't have reliable film from the DSL. So I can tell you that people have written about him having above average speed and defense and an average arm. I haven't seen it. But what we can do is look at the data to tell you that the things he's done on the field, while the slash line isn't that impressive, the actual things he has done are surprisingly impressive. So we'll start off contact rates, right? His overall contact in the DSL, 80%. And in the zone, 85%. And while yes, it is true that DSL pitching is usually not great at all, that is correct to say that. It's still something where, for a player that young, to be that have that good of contact and to be that disciplined. His chase rate was under 15%. Is noteworthy because remember, he's doing this at the age of 17. And then the power numbers on their own, when you adjust for age, they're good. And then when you pull down to specific situations, you can see where they could be amazing, right? So overall, like average power, 86 or average exit velocity, 86.5 miles an hour. And below MLB average, yes, but the average for teenagers in the DSL is 80 miles an hour. So he's 6.5 miles an hour better than average. His 90th percentile exit velo is 101. And again, reminder, last year the MLB average was 103 and change. So you see where it's close already. But the thing to like about this is, and we've talked about this somewhat, where sometimes guys can play up on their power by making optimal contact. Yophrey Rodriguez, and this is a great note from Baseball America, they had this, on balls that he has hit at 95 miles an hour or harder, his launch angle is 13.1%. It's almost the platonic ideal for what you need to get extra base hits, to get home runs, and to do all of that at age 17 shows you that offensively he is a special talent. And then I think this organization has a habit of taking really talented players out of the DSL, bringing them stateside, and just skipping complex altogether. Jackson Churio went straight to single A. Yophrey Rodriguez feels like the kind of guy that could just skip complex and go straight to single A, and he'll have a chance, if everything goes right, to just explode in 24. And that's what I love about how the Brewers do this, is we will find out very easily, very quickly, how good he legitimately could be, because he's going to get thrown right into the fire. But from what we've seen, it feels like he's going to be able to handle it. Another question about the spring breakout and some of the games that we're watching for. So reminder about this is the new Major League Baseball thing they're doing, where in spring training they will pair up teams and their prospects will play each other. All of the games are March 14th through 17th. And there's a couple weird things to know about how this is going to work, right? So the rosters are based off of the MLB Pipeline top 30s. We're actually going to get those rosters on March 7th at 11 a.m. on MLB Network. They're going to broadcast it. But what I love about doing this is you get all of these guys who are in different development timelines. They have an opportunity to play together. And the games will be interesting. The default is 7 innings, no extra innings. Now, the teams can together agree to play a full 9. The Padres and Mariners have already done that, but it could just be as short as 7. The rosters are going to be 25 or so players per team, which sounds like it would be difficult to get guys, especially pitchers, to get them enough playtime, but there's some unique rules that can help with that. One, there is no 3-batter minimum. You can send a guy in for 1 at-bat and take him back out. And then also, you have the ability to put a pitcher, back into the game. It's like a re-entry rule. So a pitcher can pitch, he can face 2 batters. You can lift him from the game, put a different pitcher in for that 3rd batter, and then the original pitcher can come back in if you need to. If it's a 2-way player, he can be in the game as a hitter. He can leave and come back as a pitcher. So you have some flexibility to try to get more pitchers into the game. It doesn't work for position players. They can't leave and come back. But pitchers can leave and come back. There is a pitch timer. They'll have pitch comm. They'll have 7 mound visits, which is a lot, especially if it's only a 7-inning game, but that's fine. And some of these matchups are going to be really good. Most of them, not all of them, most of them will be broadcast on either MLB Network, MLB.com, or some of the regional sports networks. And there was an article from MLB.com that has the list of all of these. But some of the ones, my viewing schedule here, I've got 6 games that'll all line up for the most part where you can watch them all. Thursday, the kickoff, Orioles versus Pirates at 7:05 on MLB Network. This is Thursday, March 14th. Completely obvious. If you're listening to this podcast, you know why that's a must-watch game. The Orioles have a million top 100 prospects. The Pirates have Paul Skeens and some great pitchers. Going to be fantastic. I'm excited for Skeens to leave the game and then to fight to get put back in because he wants to face Jackson Holliday one more time. Friday the 15th, the Padres and the Mariners will be on MLB Network at 4:10 Eastern. Right before that, the Nationals at Mets will be at 3:10. I want to see some of these Mets pitchers versus some of these Nationals hitters. That's going to be a great matchup. So your Mike Vasils and guys like that versus your Dylan Cruz. I want to see what that looks like. And then Saturday is a triple header, and we have broadcast information for two of these that I think will be really good. Of the early matchups, Phillies at Tigers, Braves at Red Sox. As a Braves fan, I'm defaulting to Braves at Red Sox. I want to see Hurston Waldrop. I want to see Ignacio Alvarez, all of these guys, David McCabe, all that stuff. That'll be on MLB Network. At 4:05, the Tampa Bay Rays are going to the Minnesota Twins. And we don't have broadcast information for this yet. Most of these are going to be on television. One or two of them, Guardians-Reds, would be a great matchup. Audio only. I'm probably not going to be there. I'd rather see this, right? But Rays at Twins, you could have a lot of top prospects in this game. And I want to see that left side of the Rays infield, Caminero and Carson Williams. I want to see them together. And then the Twins, just tons of talent. Brooks Lee, some outfield. It's going to be really fun. And then after that, the nightcap here, Arizona at Colorado. It's a position player fest, right? I do want to see some of these Colorado pitchers, but this is sheer position play. Jordan Lawler, Ivan Melendez, all these guys for Arizona versus the million outfielders like a Yanquiel Fernandez, Jordan Beck, all of these guys, Catcher DeRomo, Zach Veen, all of these guys that the Rockies have. I want to see what happens there. We will get automated balls and strikes challenges in some of these parks. Some of the Florida State League parks have StatCast setups. So some of these we will, some of these we will not. But either way, going to be tons of fun. And then Sunday, 10:05 Eastern is Astros at Cardinals, which is audio only. And then Brewers at Royals at 4:05 Eastern. I want to see some of these Royals pitchers, Mason Barnett, versus the Brewers and all of these great outfielders and hitters that they have. In just a minute, was asked a question about draft picks being traded, as well as some how to watch minor league baseball in 2024. We'll discuss that next, right here on Locked On MLB Prospects. But first, today's episode is brought to you by our friends at eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience, these things are what win you championships, but they're also what keep your vehicle running at peak performance. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether it's speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts to choose from, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. Keep your vehicle running at peak performance at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions do apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Final segment of Locked On MLB Prospects here on Monday. And quick reminder, if you have questions for this mailbag, I'm on Twitter at Crosby Baseball. Show's on Twitter at Locked On Farm. If you're new to us, super glad you're here. Would love for you to subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts or on YouTube. Leave us a 5-star review on the audio app of your choice and some really happy comments here on YouTube. That's always tons of fun for me. Okay, so we've seen an MLB trade involving a draft pick this year. The Corbin Burnes trade was pitcher DL Hall, infielder Joey Ortiz, and number 34 overall, a competitive balance A-round pick to the Brewers for Corbin Burnes. We saw two of those in 2022. The Rays and Tigers made a deal. It was Isaac Paredes and number 71 overall for Austin Meadows. That pick was used for outfielder Ryan Cermak from, I think, Illinois? I should know this. And then the Braves and Royals made a trade in July of that year, 22, and it was like three prospects, but the core of the deal was center fielder Drew Waters for the number 35 overall pick, competitive balance round A. Braves turned that into prep pitcher J.R. Ritchie, who is one of their top 5 pitching prospects. And so there were some questions about how you can trade draft picks And how come you don't see more of it? And so for the most part, MLB doesn't let you trade draft picks. And as I've been told when I've asked about this, it's mostly a money thing, right? They don't want teams who are picking first overall giving up the opportunity to get a potential generational player because they don't want to stroke a check for $8 million for a signing bonus, things like that. Competitive balance draft picks are the exception to that, but there are rules. You can only trade the pick one time. So the Orioles cannot now... I'm sorry, not the Orioles. The Brewers can now not flip that pick that they got from the Orioles to turn around and get another piece. They have to keep that pick. They have to make that selection. They can't flip that pick. And then you can't trade the pick for cash. You can't sell the pick to somebody else because the way that these picks are distributed, there's two competitive balance rounds. Competitive balance round A is between the first and second round of the draft, and round B is between the second and the third. And the way that these work is it is the 10 lowest revenue clubs are in the pool to get a pick, and the 10 smallest markets are in the pool to get a pick. Now, there's not 20 picks because some teams qualify both times, right? They're not only one of the 10 smallest markets, they're also one of the 10 lowest revenue clubs. But they do this, and then the eligible teams are assigned a pick. And there is a specific pattern with which MLB does. They have this whole thing set. But the whole idea here is it is to help those teams that financially don't have the same resources as your Los Angeles Dodgers, as your New York Yankees, as your Atlanta Braves. And so I think that you're probably not going to see MLB open up all picks to being drafted because the size of your draft pool, like that's not an obstacle to every team. Every team, for the most part, uses 100 to 105% of their pool every year. But I do like the idea of more teams being willing to move these picks and deals. I think that's fantastic. And I hope it continues. I hope we see more of these. On the Wednesday draft show, we're going to talk about some of the organizations that have multiple picks because of the prospect promotion incentive or for other reasons, and what they might do based on their experience drafting, what they need in their farm system, what they could do with those picks in 24. So stay tuned for that on Wednesday. A couple questions from Colin real quick. The first one was, he said he enjoyed watching the minor league games on the Bally Sports app last year and wants to know if that's going to continue in 2024. So this is not the Bally Sports app that is attached to the broadcast rights for certain teams. This is the Bally Live app, which is an app that Bally has that has a ton of live programming. It also, I believe in certain places, it has gambling features and things like that, but they signed a deal with Minor League Baseball. They are the exclusive fantasy and gaming partner, and they have all of the games, for the most part, available that are available to watch in this app. I have officially asked for comment on this, but as I have been told, as I understand, that will continue for 2024. That is separate from the bankruptcy issues, because the bankruptcy stuff with the television broadcasts, that is a different company, Diamond Sports, who licenses the Bally name for the channels. And this is a partnership with the Bally Corporation. So this will continue in 24. Colin also asks if there are MLB draft prospects from his alma mater, Cal State Fullerton, and they've produced some great players in MLB history, just active right now. J.D. Davis, Matt Chapman, Justin Turner, Tanner Bybee. There are on top 200 boards for 24 and 25. There are not any players from Cal State Fullerton on there right now. Guys will always climb the boards in their final years and with great performances. And I think last year they had 4 players drafted and a couple more signed as free agents, but just not inside that top 200 college prospects. Now in 26, they do have a top 100 college prospect in right-hand pitcher Chris Hernandez. But we'll have to keep watching to see what they actually do this season to see where they end up. Fantastic week this week. We're talking about some of the players who have fallen down on top prospect lists or fallen off top prospect lists altogether. and what they have to do to get back on there. So stay tuned for that. Again, also doing a Draft Wednesday show. In the meantime, if you have questions for the mailbag, anything like that, I'm on Twitter at Crosby Baseball. Show's on Twitter at Locked On Farm. Again, we've got email, we've got a Discord. It's all in the episode description. It's all in the show notes. Until tomorrow's show, remember, it's always a great time to pay a minor leaguer.